Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome to Ms.Interpretations. My name is Maren, and this is my virtual campfire. And today we have Jackson Atwell from Truth and Tradition. Welcome.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's so cool to, see all the graphics and all of that on the other side of the camera. So
Oh, yeah, right. You
yeah,
didn't have to put
super
it
cool.
together, correct?
Yeah, no, I didn't. That's also kind of nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
for
good. You
sure.
just had to listen to me whine about it before we got
Uh,
on. So,
yeah.
so Jackson, tell us who you are, what you do, and where we can find you.
Yeah, so I run a YouTube channel, just like Marin here, and I cover similar topics on the intersection of science, religion, and philosophy. A lot of the topics that I cover are, conversations with guests, experts, scholars in those fields, and so I put out a podcast once a month covering something along those topics. And then I also have been doing a crazy kind of series. Once a week, I go live watching Alex O'Connor videos because I'm doing a series in hopes of going onto a show. Watching every single Alex O'Connor video, so that's the big project I've been doing,
Yeah.
and will continue to do for I guess another 6 months or so. But yeah,
Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. Alex O'Connor is someone that I binge watched a couple, starting a couple of years ago. So,
yep.
but I haven't kept up with all of his most recent stuff. So, but yeah, and it is kind of fun to watch it, with other people, right? And
Yep.
be able to respond to that. So I think that's kind of fun. And Jesse Riverbank, thank you very much. I just I was listening to another live, and yeah, so there's weird stuff going on about YouTube. So it might be us. It might just be us
Yeah.
tonight, which is totally fine. So, yeah, and if y'all are having trouble, I'm in Discord in the Deconstruction Junction area. I'm in Blitz's Discord or whatever. So like, shoot me a message if something's weird, if you can find that. So anyway, so yeah, so we were talking this week
Hmm.
about tonight, and uh, we both agreed that we would like for you to share your story, your deconstruction story. You mentioned that you haven't really talked much about that yet, have you?
No, I have not. I know I've shared about it somewhere in like the YouTube comments, kind of
Hmm.
deep space there, the dark side of YouTube. But I haven't really actually shared about it publicly before. So
Okay.
yeah,
So you ready to do that tonight at our
yeah,
campfire?
yeah, for
Tell
sure.
us, that's the, I don't know if you know, but one reason I call this the virtual campfire is my favorite anthropology teacher, Dr. Mel Connor. He said that, one of the defining things about humans is that we sat around telling stories, right?
Mm,
And sat around the campfire telling stories. So that's one reason that it's kind of a nod to him as well, because he was one of my thesis advisors. So it's kind of fun. So yeah, so we want to know about your story, and I can see myself jumping. I think that might be YouTube. So yeah, we'll go with it. But yeah, I think it always helps to hear uh, people's experience with getting to where they are
hmm.
and how they got there, because there's somebody else like you out there. Yeah, not,
Yeah.
not everybody has the exact same story, but it's just great to be able to identify with folks, because this can be a lonely place to be if you deconstruct and deconvert. So yeah, so talk to us.
Yeah. So my, I guess a bit of a preface before I guess I share my story. Um, the reason why I think it's important to share, especially a story about deconstruction, is like you said, people can relate to it, but it also helps you as an individual. So if you've never shared your story or something like that, definitely
Mhm.
recommend it to share it with a friend or a family member because it
Right.
helps you put pieces together that maybe you didn't quite put together before, especially when you put it, onto paper or something like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's very important. But yeah, my story starts out like a lot of people. I grew up in a uh, Protestant evangelical church. Specifically, though, I was in the charismatic Christian church. So, uh, people getting slain in the spirit, people speaking in tongues,
So what was that, like,
healing.
service like? What was that experience like a for
Yeah, I think I put it in the little document I sent. I said it was like a concert and a TED Talk mixed together. So,
Mm,
a live concert with lights and smoke machines, and then you get like a fancy TED Talk 3-point sermon afterward, and
yeah.
then everyone's crying and goes to the altar at the very end of it. So it's a very spectacular, emotive kind of
Yeah.
experience for
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Is it was it a big church, the one you went to mostly?
yeah. So I went to it was I would say probably about 300 or so members.
Okay, yeah.
So but I mean it increased I think from when I was a kid to when I grew up. So I don't know exactly what it was at the end, but yeah, so it was definitely like that lively experience. There was a lot of people, um but our family was very involved in the church, and so it's not like I didn't know the head pastor. I didn't know uh like people on staff like I did,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
a lot of them were like mentors to me and like helped me in life and things like that. So but yeah, it all started in this kind of environment. And for me, Christianity back then, um, we used to use the term, it's a relationship, not a religion, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so I think you hear that a lot, especially in charismatic like circles. And I used to hate the word religion. I was like, yuck, like that's bad. That's what the people who aren't actually following Jesus, that's what they are. They're the religious folk.
Yeah.
So I think it was kind of very judgmental. But that's the environment that you grow in. You don't realize that that's the aspect of things that you're carrying with you. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so
So
that's
it was part
where
of
it
the kind of the
started.
party line maybe to say that? That, you didn't
Um,
like religion, or is the relation just focusing it's a relationship, not religion, or yeah.
yeah, I mean, you could say party line, but it was also in some of the practices themselves, right?
Mm,
So the reason we emphasized relationship with Jesus or with God over like religion is mainly because the practices of religion, the traditions and things like that, were seen as bad or not like true representations of faith, right? But
okay.
like true representations of faith would be things like speaking in tongues, the baptism of the Holy Spirit, having a kind of spiritual experience while at church. It would be things like going out and praying for healing for people. So
Mm.
practicing the gifts of the Spirit was a huge emphasis of my background.
So,
And yeah, go ahead.
can I ask you something about that real quick?
Yes.
Like, what was that experience like for you? Was it something that was, like, just kind of a natural thing that you just experienced, or did you feel pressure to be a certain way? Or, I know that some people, like with speaking in tongues, that they felt kind of pressured, but
Yeah.
everybody's different, right? So
Yeah. So it's weird. I loved certain aspects of it. To this day, I still think there's value in, especially like the practice of worship, like
mhm,
musical worship,
mhm.
because you're not going to really find a lot of places where someone who's um, kind of elderly is going to be able to do some of this stuff like at church, like
Yeah.
they do at church, and
Yeah.
like clap their hands and like get a little bit more loose and stuff. And then next to them there'd be like a 3-year-old toddler who's jumping up and down and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think that kind of environment's actually very beautiful, and is something that you don't really see in other aspects of society. So there are things that I do really enjoy, but to the point of speaking in tongues and some of that other stuff, I I did struggle. I did struggle a lot because for speaking in tongues specifically, there was like a night where I went to church and they prayed over all of us so that we would get the baptism of the Holy Spirit.
Mm.
And in the AG church, the first sign of being baptized in the Holy Spirit is speaking in other tongues, right? And so that was the big emphasis at this night. And I don't know, I was like 11 years old,
Mm.
and I
That's
didn't,
wow. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I didn't want to let anyone down, and so
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I did speak in tongues, and I remember going home and like telling my parents about it, and they were like, "Oh, that's so amazing! That's super great." And afterward, I felt a mix, like, was that the real thing or did I make that up? I didn't
Right.
really know, and part of me was like, man, I feel like I feel a little bit guilty that I'm maybe making this up. So it was definitely a long process of like continually seeking, and from
Mhm.
one year I'd be like, oh yeah, I speak in tongues. The next year I'd be like, I don't actually speak in tongues. And it was this balancing
Yeah.
act
Yeah.
where I was, yeah, slowly either convincing myself that I did or not, or believing that I didn't.
Yeah.
um
It
and it
sounds
would just
similar
change.
to experience I've heard of from some folks as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think the worst thing though, because speaking in tongues, uh, there's the aspect of it being like that guilt trip aspect, but then there's also, I don't know, there's something about just like speaking gibberish that's like relieving, and
It's
so I think,
meditative almost. Yeah.
yeah. And so I think that is a beautiful part of it, that is probably what people are experiencing who say they actually are experiencing it. There's
Right.
their experience, like what you said, that meditative aspect of it.
Mhm.
So, and I've experienced that too. Like I've had that moment where I was like quiet and then like closing my eyes and just like speaking gibberish, and
Yeah.
it was nice. So,
Yeah. I
um,
mean, it's akin to, I think, the mantra when for meditation,
mm,
right? And saying a syllable or something over and over again,
mhm,
just or the rosary over and over again, right? It's
mhm.
something that can tap into maybe. I saw AJ's here from Ways to Human, but a different part of your consciousness. It's not that you're actually, you know, going into a different, well, I mean, yeah, it's just like a different state, a different mental state.
Yeah,
Yep, yep.
yeah. So, but I mean, before we kind of move on to the next thing, the thing that I did find to be really bad about that environment, because a lot of it was great and a lot of it I still consider to be good, but there was a couple things that were bad, I would say. Like prophecy, a lot of the time we invited people from like Bethel to come in and talk about prophecy.
Bethel,
Um,
what do you
oh,
mean?
Bethel Church.
Oh,
It's a church on the West Coast in, I believe, Red Oak, California.
okay,
So if you ever look up, the main pastor is Brian Johnson. If
okay,
you look up like Bethel School, I think it's like spiritual ministry or something like that. They have a school that teaches people like spiritual gifts and stuff, and
mm,
um, so, but so like they're one of the main kind of spiritual groups online that people can kind of follow and learn from.
okay, okay,
Um, but yeah, when we would invite people from their school, uh, And I just saw the comment. I like pig brains and I cannot lie. Oh, it's good.
That's
That's
awesome,
good.
AJ. Sorry. All right. So you invite folks from Bethel to come and prophesy
Yeah,
for
and
your
they
members.
would they would teach us how to prophesy, and basically what that
So,
process looked like was
okay.
to be with some, you partner up with someone,
Mhm.
and you would have to imagine an animal. So you look at them, you close your eyes, you imagine an animal, and then you open your eyes and you then tell them why they represent the characteristics of the animal you imagined. And that was supposed to be a prophecy, basically. Um, so
That's
yeah,
fascinating. I want to get back to that at the end of your story here. So I need to try and remind me if I forget. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool.
So
That's
that
that's fascinating.
that was my background. And I want to say my first, because I think a big topic is going to be deconstruction in this video,
Mhm.
and I don't consider deconstruction as destruction, right? It's not destroying what you believe and leaving nothing left. I imagine it kind of like a puzzle piece. So you have this sort of puzzle piece, and you look at it, and it seems to all fit together. Deconstruction is the process of looking at it closer and realizing some of the pieces are not in the right spot, and then
Mhm.
taking those out and trying to find where they do fit in.
Mm.
So for me, deconstruction started while I was a Christian.
Yeah.
And like you were mentioned it earlier, but deconversion is what happens much later.
Yeah.
So my first deconstruction, though, I would say started when I got into like high school. My faith became a lot more less about like my family and like being a part of a Christian family, and then
Mhm.
became a lot more about me, like reading the Bible every day, being in prayer like for like an hour every day, and just like really being in the presence of God as much as I could.
We called it
Um,
quiet time. Did y'all call it quiet
quiet
time?
time,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Except it wasn't so quiet in the Pentecostal church, but
Okay.
but quiet time, yeah. um, but yeah, so my first deconstruction, I would say, happened when I was in high school, when I started to take it more seriously and take it as a personal kind of thing.
Mhm.
I started to see other people around me that didn't take it so seriously. Specifically, the gifts of the Spirit, they didn't take very seriously. They would have doubts that people would be healed from prayer. They would have doubts that a prophecy would come true. And sometimes they would just not be very emotional in worship. Like that was also part of it.
Mm.
And so I developed this sort of like judgmental mindset where I was like, not even the Pentecostal church is safe. There's some fakers here. And I need to, it's my goal to try and teach the fakers within the church how to be a true follower of Jesus, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
kind of the first process of deconstruction, was me realizing that I was superior to a lot of people in the church, which is
You're
obviously not true.
you're
But
not well, I mean, you're not alone. I'm smiling a lot because I'm like, yeah, I kind of, yeah, I'm identifying with that as well. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. So that's kind of my first deconstruction, and um,
So you're calling the not everybody uh that not everybody really believing in your church, or not like buying in or doing the things that makes you a part of this church, right? Are you calling that a part of your deconstruction?
so that first aspect was I went from basically not I went from like seeing the church, the Pentecostal church as a whole, as the church, right?
Hmm.
And then I saw that there was a lot of people who had doubts, a lot of people who had sin issues, a lot of people with a lot of things that I did not see as up to snuff. And because of that, I started to realize that I could really only rely on me and my relationship with God, and then have to try and kind of pull along all these other people who are, not, uh,
Not
living
getting
up
it.
to, not
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
it, not living up to the expectation of Jesus, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So
Okay.
that was kind of the first thing that popped up, and my mind just totally shift from Christianity as a family to Christianity is me and Jesus, and trying to get all these other you know people to follow
Yeah.
along. So
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks.
yeah. So but yeah, the next part was when I went to university. I was someone who believed that it was always God's will to heal people. If you've ever heard of Todd White, I was a huge fan of Todd White toward
Okay.
the end of my high school career. And what he would do is he'd go out and pray for like homeless people, or like pray for, people who were sick, and try and heal them. And every time there would be some degree, some percentage of healing that would occur.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would do. I would go out and
Like,
I'd pray
okay,
for
like
people
what?
on
Give
Todd
me an
White.
example because this is intriguing.
Yeah.
Like,
Uh,
what would work?
so yeah, so basically I would go and I'd find someone with some sort of disability, or some sort of maybe they were limping, maybe they had a cough, maybe they said they had back issues, and I would pray a short prayer. That was key. It always had to be short, like 1 or 2 sentences. I would lay my hands on them, pray 1 or 2 sentences, and then I'd say, "Okay, how are you feeling? What is there any like percent wise, like 0 to 100%? How much healed do you feel?" And it's in the moment they're probably kind of feeling pressured to say, "Oh yeah, I think I maybe felt like 10%, healed there." And so I'd be like, "Okay, let's keep praying." And so I'd pray again, just like 1 or 2 sentences. Then I'd
Wow.
ask, and they'd say, "Oh, 20%, 30%." And then, eventually I think maybe twice I had an experience where the person was like, said they were fully healed. Um, but most of the time it was just like 50%. I'd be like, "Okay, hey, I'm gonna be praying for you, if I ever run into you again, let me know if you got healed," kind of thing. And then
Yeah.
I'd be like celebrating that, they were healed a certain degree or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Fascinating.
Yeah. I did this other thing a couple of times. You can look this up on YouTube, but
Okay.
they will Todd White and a lot of, street healers will do this. Um, they will grab people's feet, basically. If they ever have like a back problem or something like that, they'll tell them, "Okay, sit down and extend your legs." And they'd look at their legs, and most of the time their legs would not be the same kind of length. So it'd be kind of
Mhm.
like that kind of view.
Yeah.
And they would say, "Oh, look, your legs are not the same length, and that's why you're having back problems." And so that they'd be praying while holding their legs, and would eventually the leg that was shorter would increase to match the one that was longer. Well, what was really happening is they're just shifting the legs over as they're slowly praying, and obviously that's going to make the legs in place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man. So how did okay.
Yeah.
I want to know when you figured that out, but yeah, just you tell it the way you want to, but I'm like, wow.
Well, it was one of those things that I did. Like I would do that, and I don't think I knew that I was doing it,
Oh wow.
but over time, I so there's you're probably familiar with this guy, Mike Winger. Have you heard of
Yeah.
him?
Yeah.
So in college, I became a huge fan of Mike Winger,
Okay.
and he did a video disproving Todd White. And I saw that, and I was mad. I was like, "How dare you, do that?" And then I watched it, and he explained that process, and I thought back to what I'd done, and I think that's when I kind of started to put the pieces together.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was kind of wild.
I have scoliosis, so I'm sitting here. I'm trying. I want to squirm right now because I'm like, yeah, one of my legs is longer than the other.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, all right, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, that was that like crazy for you to see that video and like you got mad, but then how did you process that?
For me, I definitely was mad at first. And then my initial kind of thoughts after like thinking about it for a while were, oh, maybe he is doing that. But obviously he's not doing that on purpose. Like it's just like something that he's maybe doing subconsciously.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that's like
Because you were.
not, yeah, because I was. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that's basically what my thought process was. Oh, the other thing about Todd White is he preaches that he's sinless, that after being saved, God led him to the point of being sinless. And so I started to believe
I
that you
wonder
could
how his
become
family
sinless.
feels about that.
Yeah. Well, he's had a scandal in the last year.
Mm.
So he's one
Oh,
of
I'm
them.
shocked.
Yeah. uh
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
So that, you know, that's a lot of where I came from, and why I think it's important to test things and be open minded too.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah. So
it's
your college experience. So did all of this happen while you were in college? This
that all happened in high school.
the Mike Winger thing too.
That happened. Okay, that happened in college. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
yeah. So yeah, I would say my second kind of deconstruction happened in college,
Mhm.
where I was very much so into the spiritual gifts, into um, that whole kind of arena
Were
of
your
faith.
friends in college also in this same type of faith?
So no, they weren't. Um, all my, I guess, friends from like growing up years either went to like different colleges or just like, because I moved out of town to go to
Mhm.
university.
Yeah.
So yeah, the church I went to was actually um I would say closest denomination would be Southern Baptist.
Uh-huh.
Um so the gifts of the spirit were not the emphasis at all.
But the altar call
Um
was still there.
no, actually at my church it was not there.
Southern Baptist Church without altar call? Are you
Yeah.
serious?
Yeah, they were actually against altar calls at my church.
Blasphemy. Oh.
I know. It was actually wild. I think the very first time I went to that church, because I had like I basically my sister-in-law, her sister was on staff at the church I was going to. And so I found out about that church going to university and then ended up
Mhm.
going over there.
Yeah.
But the very first Sunday, the pastor says that he gets everyone together in the church and is like, this person in our congregation has cancer, and I've never seen anyone healed through prayer before, but I think it's really good, and I believe in the power of prayer. Can we come around, lay hands, and pray for healing over this person? I
Mhm.
remember thinking, I was like, you're the head pastor of this church and you've never seen someone healed through prayer before? I was blown away. I was like, what? That's ridiculous. And
Wow.
so it was yeah, to me it was absolutely insane. I almost didn't go back to the church because I
Yeah, I
was
was gonna
like,
say that's probably like huge for you, wasn't it?
yeah, I probably wouldn't have gone back if they didn't have like a college ministry where I met some people quickly and like became good friends with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the main reason I stayed. But yeah, at first that was just crazy to me. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so over time going to that church, I started out as, I thought that I was going to change the culture of the church. And so, during worship, no one would like jump up and down or raise their hands or anything like that. So I decided I would be the one to do that. So I would do that. It became known as kind of the energetic guy in the back who, goes crazy during worship time. So yeah, that was me for a while.
Yeah.
And then eventually I think it just slowly became less and less until I was kind of worshiping the same way as everyone else.
Mhm.
Um, and my theology totally changed too. Like I believed it was always God's will to heal someone. And the only reason he didn't was because you as the prayer didn't have enough faith.
That's
And
the prayer. Okay.
yeah. And so that's that's what I would tell people. That's what I believed. Um, I was Arminianist too growing up.
You're what?
Arminianist. So basically, there's Arminianism, Molinism, and Calvinism. These are all
I
kind
know
of
Calvinism, but I don't know the others. So yeah.
oh, okay. So Calvinism is basically the idea that you are saved through the faith that God grants you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Election
you,
almost. Yeah.
yeah, you are elected
Hmm.
to have faith to follow Jesus and to be saved. And the reason they believe that is because we are dead in our sins is one of the foundational points of TULIP for Calvinism,
Mm.
total depravity. And so, because you're totally deprived, totally dead in your sins, you do not have the power to have faith to follow Jesus, right?
Right. Right.
Um, when I first heard that, I thought that was heresy. I was like, that's wrong, and found out that the church I was going to, that's what they believed in
Mm.
college. And
Yeah.
that was something I had to wrestle with for a while. I eventually ended up switching switching to Molinism.
Which is
Um, so Molinism, okay, basically it's the idea that there's tons of possible worlds. Um, so there's still free will in
mhm,
salvation, but the free will um, is only because it's your will and not because it's free, right? So it's kind of like a
yeah.
compatibilist view. So
Okay.
your will is your own. It's not something God gave you to be saved. And that will is due to the fact that out of every possible world, God chose the possible world where you are saved and where the greatest good can come out.
Okay.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. For everybody,
The greatest
or
possible good.
the
Yeah.
greatest possible world for each person. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could
Okay.
probably extend that to animals. At the time, I didn't extend it to animals, but
Mm.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of where my theology switched, and I became a lot more into like theology and apologetics. So yeah, that was my second deconstruction. I'd say is I switched from being very spiritually minded to more theologically minded. And so
Okay.
instead of going out to pray for people for healing, it was going out to have conversations about apologetics and
Belief.
convince people,
Yeah.
yeah, that,
Okay.
yeah, stuff like that.
And this will that you're talking about is part of that, like, not my will but thine be done kind of thing. So aligning your will with God's will, is that part of that
Oh,
structure?
compatibilism.
Molinism.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry,
Okay.
Molinism is it's a form of compatibilist thought. Um, but yes, so
Okay.
basically, God chooses the timeline where you would choose Him.
Okay.
So you technically don't freely choose because God chose the timeline,
I
but
see.
you it was your will that chose God.
Okay. But it's the time. See now. Okay. We'll talk about that. There's a lot of folks that say, "Well, why didn't God do that for everybody all the time?" But okay, all right, cool. All right, and the other one was our Armenianism.
Arminianism.
Arminianism. Okay.
Yeah, so that's basically the idea that you do have free will and you do choose God, right?
Mm.
So
Doesn't have
yeah,
anything to
so
do with being afraid of hell or anything like that, right? It's just
no, it's that you like, well, I mean maybe. but
I'm
but
joking.
it's it's that you have free will and you are able to choose salvation.
Okay.
Um
All
so
righty.
that's what I believed growing up, you
Okay.
choose salvation basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's always helpful. I
Yeah.
I haven't learned those before, so it's cool.
Yeah, I've had many discussions with Calvinists. So it's a fascinating topic. So,
Yeah,
but yeah.
yeah. So,
Um,
so that's your second stage of
mhm.
deconstruction, shifting to the more compatibilist type of perspective.
Yeah, that and also I was very accepting of Calvinists. I was like, and there's points where I would say I was Calvinist,
Mm,
but most of the time I would say I was more on that Molinist perspective.
hmm.
But I think the main shift was really not seeing the spiritual gifts as the emphasis of Christianity, but instead the
Right.
emphasis was on salvation. Um,
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
where I think it
Was that
really
that Southern
shifted.
Baptist influence, do you think?
Yes,
Okay.
100%.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
The denomination, for anyone who's curious, was actually CMAC, Christian Missionary Alliance. Um, so it's very similar to Southern Baptist, but it wasn't actually Southern Baptist.
Okay. I would throw up comments here and there, and you can respond to them or not. But I don't want to derail your story. But there's good things going on
Let's
here.
hear them. Let's see them.
So Calvinists and the Gnostics with their demiurge do match reality best. Would you agree?
Sorry, can you pull it
Oh,
up
sorry,
again?
sorry. I should leave it up. Okay.
Calvinists and the Gnostics with their demiurge do match reality best. Yeah, so the demiurge is the creator of the physical world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's kind of the evil creator god in Gnosticism. So Calvinism, though, doesn't quite hold to the demiurge,
Yeah. It just
but
seems that way, especially as an outsider looking at Calvinism, like who gets elected and that kind of thing. So maybe you see what I'm saying? It might be a
yeah,
critique of a Calvinist position, but yeah. Oh God, it's just evil. See, there you go. Kind of what I was saying. That Tommy grew up Calvinist, and then after deconstructing, I thought they had the best answer for the problem of evil. God is just evil. So yeah,
good
yeah,
comment, Tommy.
yeah, yeah. That's us. Solve the problem there. So, all right. So your second. This is through college, then, basically for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then what
Um,
happened?
oh boy, it was fucking nuts, dude. Um, yeah, I basically what ended up happening is I started to get really into missions. So like
Mhm,
missionary specifically overseas.
mhm.
The church I was a part of was evangelical, and we emphasize world missions a lot.
Yeah.
We partnered with a lot of missionaries, and I went on a couple mission trips. And while I was overseas, um, I my faith in the institution I was a part of decreased a lot.
Mm.
Um, I raised like $5,000 in order to go overseas,
Right.
and when I went overseas, I pretty much just played soccer with people and had spiritual conversations every once in a while. I did a couple like sermons, but most of my days were just like spent, hanging out with people, playing soccer and talking in coffee shops. And that was pretty
Okay.
much it. And I felt really guilty about that. Um, but everyone else around me seemed to think it was just absolutely normal to like to like not do anything except just like vibe and chill and have conversations about Jesus every once in a while.
Mhm, mhm.
And so I was kind of pissed. I was like, dude, so many people sent me money in order to get me over here, and all we're doing is like
Hanging out.
hanging out. Like I felt really frustrated about that. Um and so when when that kind of happened, I started to really lose faith
Mhm.
in the at least missions, and also
Okay.
the church I was a part of that helped send me overseas. I was there for 2 months, so it wasn't like a short
Wow.
period of time.
No, that's a
And
lot. I mean, okay. Yeah.
and so yeah, but the whole time it was like very little things. Like I did create a few sermons and like preach in church a couple times, but like I just felt like we did barely anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, is this what like missions is really like? Like, are we actually sending all this money to people to just like chill out, like, and talk
Yeah.
about Jesus? Like, I was really blown away by that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
That was quite a shocker. Sounds like.
yeah, it really was. Um, but when I got back from that mission trip, that was like, I think like my junior year, like senior year. When I got back, cause I was really thinking about going into ministry, like vocational ministry. But after that experience, I was like, if I go into ministry, I don't know if I want to do it at the church that I'm in.
Right.
Um, which was crazy because that's what I was thinking. And I was at school, not even to really do the degree I was doing. I was studying elementary education, and
Mm.
I was close to graduating and stuff. And I realized I needed to switch majors because, you know, I was going to graduate, and the plan was to not do elementary education. I wasn't like really a fan of the practicums that I'd done.
Hmm.
And so, but my plan was to do ministry. And then, uh, then I realized, oh shit, I don't like this kind of ministry.
Yeah.
And, so I had to switch up what I was doing.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
um, yeah, it was pretty wild. I ended up studying broadcasting, and so that's what I'm kind of doing today.
Excellent. Yeah.
But yeah, so I would say though, when I got back, I did get back into missions, and my like heart for missions was rejuvenated, but that part of me that was doubting missions was still there. Like doubting the institution was still there.
Yeah.
But I took a class. It's called the Perspectives of the World Christian Movement,
The
and
beginning of the end. Was that the beginning of the
I don't know,
end?
but it could have been. It could have been. I really don't know. That class was interesting though. They'd bring in people like missionaries from overseas to preach every single week, and it was like a 16-week class,
Okay.
pretty extensive. So a lot of studying, a lot of material, covered like the history of missions,
Mhm.
covered like tactics for reaching people with ministry. So it covered a lot of things, and that actually rejuvenated my love for missions.
Right.
But that class, I would say, was the exciting thing. I don't think missions was actually the what people presented it as during that class.
Yeah.
But you know, I'd only had one experience overseas, so I was willing to say, oh, you know what, that's that's not what it's like. So stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So but during that class, I then decided I'm going to become a missionary once again, and I started preparing to go overseas as a missionary, and plant churches, learning the process of what it's like to plant churches. I enrolled in a program called the 9-month initiative, which was a 9-month program in order to get me ready to go overseas, to do a
Who was that
2-man.
with? Was that with the church that you were attending? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a group called Frontiers, and they help people basically become missionaries
Mhm.
overseas. There's a lot of missions organizations out there.
Yeah.
And so our church partnered with Frontiers and had a Frontiers representative that I became really close friends with, in order to go,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah. So that I mean, I was gung ho. I created like a 6-year plan in order to go overseas. So I'd like
Wow.
finish university, and then I'd spend 9 months doing that program, spend a few months raising money to go overseas, and then I'd go overseas for 2 years on a journeyman
Mhm.
opportunity to
Okay.
learn the language and the culture.
Yeah.
Come back for a year, and raise funds again, and then I'd go out for phase 2, which was my actual place where I was going to be long term to plant churches and
Wow.
yeah, build the kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, this is fascinating. I'm really intrigued because I have a couple of college roommates. I mean, I got who ended up getting divinity degrees and becoming ministers,
Mm,
and a couple of college friends and roommates who ended up being missionaries. So but I haven't heard a deconstruction story of someone who actually was, a missionary.
yeah,
Fascinating. Yeah.
yeah. I guess I don't really see many people that way.
Hmm.
So, but the last straw is my next deconstruction though. Um, it's ironic because it happened in like probably the point at which I felt the most spiritual fervor I'd ever
Yeah.
felt in my life.
Okay.
I was very dedicated. I was praying like hours every single day, um, and I, you know, was praying specifically like where God are you going to send me? Where God are you going to send me? And I
Hmm.
felt like a voice in my head say like I want to send you to India. And
Okay.
so I decided to go on another short term 2 month trip through my church, and they were going to choose where I was going to go. Crazy enough, they sent me to India.
Okay.
So
Nice.
I was
It was,
like, oh,
yeah. Okay. So
yeah,
God was right. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
confirmed it in my head. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm going
Yeah.
to India. Like, that's God, you know?
Right.
Uh, and so I go there with my team. And while I was in India, quote unquote, God had a different plan. And what that plan was to meet Muslims and to meet Hindus. And I befriended a couple Muslims, and my ministry partner and I would basically tell them about the Bible, about
Hmm.
Jesus, and I kind of forefronted all the apologetics, especially the resurrection, um,
Yeah.
as kind of the main reason for why you should become a Christian and not be a Muslim anymore.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and they would, we would read the Quran with them, and they would share all the, things that didn't add up in the Bible, contradictions. They shared why Jesus isn't actually never claimed to be God, and never wanted people to think that he was God.
So were they trying to
Um,
convert you then?
oh yeah, they were trying
Okay.
to convert me, and I
Okay.
was trying to convert them.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, they introduced me to like the book of Bartholomew, where there's like a story of Judas being crucified with Jesus's image. And so that was like evidence, I guess, that Judas was the person that was crucified, and Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane was ascended into heaven. So, yeah,
Did they
it's
ever say
pretty.
why? Did they ever say why it's so important to them, like that Jesus wasn't crucified?
I never got that from them.
I need to ask some friends that.
Yeah, I never got that from them. So I'm not exactly sure. I think it just might have been something that, you know, early Muslims were claiming, and
Yeah.
it might be in the Quran too. I've
Yeah. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
read the first like two parts of the Quran, the two chapters of the Quran, but I haven't read since. So up for
Yeah.
the heifer. So, but I'm pretty sure there is a
I read a
reference to the
couple of pages.
resurrection.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't make myself do it. I
What did
still
he
have it.
say?
I need to read it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Tommy says because he was a prophet and crucifixion was a dishonor.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right.
I
Good
like
to
it
know. Yeah.
with the hookup. Thanks, Tommy.
Yeah. Thank you.
um, so yeah, after that process though, I started to really question my faith. And the reason I started to question my faith is because not because of the apologetics. The apologetics were I like to say apologetics are kind of the shield that you have for your
Yeah.
faith.
Yeah.
Your faith is not apologetics most of the time.
Right.
Maybe it is for some people, but generally, your faith comes from experience. And so
Hmm.
I'd had a lot of, spiritual experiences in my past. I'd had experiences where, I was addicted to pornography, and I was able to overcome that,
Hmm.
and so a lot of that had been teaching me that this stuff was legit, you know.
Right. Right.
Um, and there was a moment in my life where I felt directionless. Like that was after my first missionary trip. I felt very directionless and very depressed.
Yeah.
Um, and so uh, it was in that moment that God kind of met me and, turned my life around, and taking that perspectives class really changed me for the better.
Yeah.
Um, but when I went to India and I started to meet a lot of Hindus there, it wasn't the Muslim apologetics, but that was maybe part of my later like logical analytical side.
Okay.
Um, but the people I met in India that were Hindu had a lot of stories of personal change, personal transformation. There was one person I met who said she went and visited a river goddess and that she was suicidal every single day. She
Mm.
had thoughts about suicide, and she said, I need to visit the river. And so she'd go and she'd pray at the riverfront, and she said that the river goddess would meet her there, and she would no longer have suicidal thoughts that day.
Wow.
And every day she did that until the suicidal thoughts went away and she no longer had it.
Wow.
And to me, I was like, okay, come on. Like, what? That's crazy.
Yeah, you can't
And
argue with that, right?
yeah, and I just didn't know how to deal with that.
Hmm.
Because to me, the only transforming faith was Christianity.
Yeah.
But now I met with another faith that I'm meeting these people and they were transformed through another faith.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, my life was kind of shook by that. Um, and over the next like year, I started to really pray and like come to God and ask like, God, who are you? Like
Hmm.
every once in a while, I'd be praying that, and I would also do a lot of. I started to dive back into apologetics and kind of view it from more a skeptical perspective. Um, and I ended up, slowly but surely realizing that I just didn't believe it anymore. Um, which was hard because
Yeah.
I was about to join a 9-month program to become a missionary overseas.
Okay. Wow. So
Yeah.
were you talking to anybody at this time? As far as like
Nope.
processing? No, just kind of analyzing the questions that Muslims would ask you, and the experience that the Hindus relayed to you,
Hmm.
and
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 re-examining
and
some of the old.
re-examining your
Yeah.
experience with everything. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a hard thing though, because there was like, I remember the day. It was in April of 2024, so not even that long ago.
Wow.
I woke up that morning, and I remember thinking to myself, I don't think there's a personal God. And I walked off, and ever since I've kind of lived as if there wasn't a personal God. I still believe potentially there's like spirituality and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that was my big moment. It was very
Wow.
subtle too. Just kind of,
It
I
just
don't
didn't
think,
make sense anymore, and yeah.
yeah.
So then what? Like what did you do?
I
You
had to
can't be a
have
missionary. You got to eat, you know.
I had
So
to have a lot of awkward conversations. That's what.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, hey, Kip.
Oh, hey,
Oh.
so you did talk to people about it?
I did. Um,
Okay. How did that go?
a lot of the conversations were not like as hard at first. Like some were pretty difficult. Like I had to sit down with my pastor and tell him, and that was probably the hardest one.
Yeah, I bet.
um, but I did, sit down with like my parents. I sat down with like some of my siblings. Sat down with a lot of my close friends. I had so many conversations, and just kind of told them that I'm not a Christian anymore. I had to get reimbursed for the 9-month program. So that was that was interesting. Return all the materials I had, and um, so yeah, that was definitely a difficult time. Just lots of very hard conversations, and it was hard because people wanted to get right into the analytics and all the reasons why, and like kind of argue me back into the faith sort of thing.
Right.
And I just didn't really want to do that, like, because I was just exhausted.
Right.
But I mean, I would, but I'd have to like tell them like, hey, can we just like chill for a second, and then I'd compose myself, and then we could do it. But yeah, so that was pretty wild.
So, like, what was so? Did people get angry with you in some of these conversations, or like how?
Yeah, some people did. There were no one got angry at me because they thought I was like evil or doing something bad or something like that. I think they
Mm,
were more just angry because they couldn't convince me to come back to the faith. Um,
hmm.
so I think that was kind of where the anger came from.
Yeah.
Um, so they just were frustrated that
Yeah.
man, why isn't he being convinced by this argument that he's heard 30 times?
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so like there was stuff like that, and I'd present arguments that I think would probably be hard for them to hear.
Hmm.
And so there was a lot of that. But there was a lot of people. I've lost friends. I will say this, like I have lost friends since deconverting.
Yeah.
So anyone who says I'm doing it for you know external reasons, like,
Yeah.
nah, dude, I lost a lot losing my faith.
Yeah.
So I
And your parents, you talked with them,
oh yeah,
your
yep,
family? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, they're all still Christian.
You
They're
don't
all
have to talk a
still,
lot about it if you don't want to, but I was just curious if, that
yeah,
was something that you went through. Yeah.
yep. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a difficult thing, very difficult.
It is.
Yeah.
It is because you lose your grounding, right?
Hmm.
In a way, it's like this is, or it's such a huge paradigm shift, right? Your brain has to
Yeah.
process, but I mean, it sounds like you're a lot like me in that, you just can't make it fit anymore,
Yeah.
right? And I kind of, yeah, in a similar way, was like, I'm just not really. I mean, I talk about it like I would go to church and go, well, metaphorically that makes sense,
Yeah.
and I would,
Yes.
like analogically, I would just be like saying things like that, and then it, saying the Nicene Creed. I just kept saying fewer and
Hmm.
fewer lines
Yeah.
until I just couldn't even say the first line. I
Yeah.
believe in God, right? I mean,
Yep.
yeah, it was kind of like bottom up from
Yeah.
all of that. So yeah, yeah. So yeah. So now I have, well, a scene I showed last week was like, well, I'm just gonna have a YouTube channel talking about it, talking about it all. Like, here you are, but it makes sense because it is your background
Yeah.
as far as broadcasting and everything. But uh, you sound like, I mean, I have, studied religion myself, but I had
Hmm.
not heard of Molinism and
Arminianism and
Arminianism.
Calvinism,
I'm gonna say
or
Armenian,
you've
sorry.
heard of Calvinism, but yeah,
Calvinism, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Arminianism.
But yeah, so I didn't study a lot of theology. I studied more ethics. So,
Mm.
but yeah, but were your friends in as deep as you, when, you know, studying all of this along
Yeah.
with you?
Yeah. A decent amount of friends really were. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, like all the apologists that are still really big today, like Capturing Christianity, Mike Winger, um, The Beat by Alan Parr, right? Uh, all those guys were like people we all watched. We'd like pull up on the TV and watch their YouTube videos, and then we discuss. And um, so yeah, I we were all pretty into it. And I think when you really look a little bit deeper at a lot of these arguments, they just aren't as strong
Yeah.
as they once were. Um, but I
So,
think it does take like that mental shift, because I would look at those arguments all the time and be convinced by them. It wasn't until I started to question that sort of uh, experience that I'd had with Christianity, that transformative experience,
mhm.
that I was able to look at it from a skeptical lens.
Right, right. So this is so let's talk a little bit about the 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 title of this video, right? So
Yeah.
uh, science and subjectivity. So I you had a really interesting perspective on subjective experience and how that's important
Mhm.
in your deconstruction story and how you think it's important, you know. So talk a little bit about that and how you put that together.
Yeah. So some of the stuff I'm presenting today, I want to say I'm not an expert. And so I could very well be wrong about a lot of this. This is me sharing about some of the stuff I've found really interesting.
Hmm.
And if you have counterpoints,
All right,
I not only want to hear them,
yeah.
I would love for you to share them and things like that too.
Okay, okay.
Because I am not an expert on this, but I do find a lot of this stuff that I've been researching really interesting. So that's my little caveat.
Okay, all right.
um, but deconstruction, I mentioned it earlier in the live stream, but I view it as kind of like a puzzle. So you have this puzzle, and there's certain parts of the puzzle that don't quite fit right.
Right.
And so you deconstruction is kind of looking at a worldview, and it doesn't have to be big. It could be like a T-shirt that you once that you've always loved no longer fits you anymore. And
Yeah.
so a part of that identity, a part of that kind of expression that you once had with that T-shirt no longer fits, and you have to throw it away. And there's a deconstruction process on your worldview even that can
Yeah.
be affected. It can be as small as that to your religious views of the entire world, right?
Oh, yeah.
So but deconstruction is a process that everyone has to go through, and I think everyone does go through, and it is something that should be valued.
Hmm.
And the reason I'm going to share this stuff today is because I think a lot of the time we value what institutions and even scientific institutions have to say, and we can allow that to totally disown our own experiences.
Okay, how
Um,
so explain.
so for me, for like a long time, I allowed the institution of the church and biblical interpretation in order to kind of show me that I to kind of to throw away a lot of the experiences that I had that didn't quite add up, right?
Mm,
Um, but in sciences too, there are scientists that have done this, right? Um, for instance, you'll probably be aware, it's a famous example, but Albert Einstein, in his theory of relativity, he had a kind of moment when thinking about himself in an elevator, where he realized, he was weightless. And in this like experience of imagining himself in an elevator, he realized, it just the idea that gravity was a force just didn't quite make sense. It didn't add up.
mhm,
And so he didn't just push that away, but he allowed that to let him continue to look deeper into the subject. And he then concluded that it's a bending of space time, and that the theory of general relativity became not just something that made sense to him, but it became what it is today, the main theory for physics right now,
So
at least in a
his
macro sense.
personal experience made that difference, that change in his
Yeah,
understanding. I have to interrupt real quick because,
yeah,
like, while you were talking about that, I have memories of myself drawing a person in an elevator in mechanics class in college. So, and then I'm like, oh yeah, and then the trains, right? We did that too. So yeah. Anyway, so keep going. I think it's
yeah.
funny
So,
how it brings back that my experience, right? It brings back that
mhm.
connection.
Another experience would be, Newton himself,
Right.
who, which is interesting because, Einstein, he disproved Newton, but Newton, he himself came up with Newtonian physics first by looking at the moon and realizing that the moon uh, appeared as if it was falling, and yet it never hit the Earth. And so that kind of wondering, that kind of like puzzlement, led him down the line of coming up with um, his theory of gravity as a force of nature, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and so that's pretty interesting. That's the math that he used is what we still use in order to explain gravity,
Right.
um, and so that's pretty interesting.
And gravitational, yeah, yeah, the big G as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep going. Sorry.
Um, Charles Darwin, with his theory of evolution, it started with him observing finches at the Galapagos Islands, right?
Mhm.
And he realized from one island to another there was different shapes and beaks, different
Right.
variations, and yet it was very similar but slightly different from island to island. And so good thing the apple fell and not the moon.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
glad about that. That makes me think about. Do you guys know the end game, like in the I'm blanking right now with Marvel, with
Oh,
Thanos who
right,
has the
right.
gauntlet and
Right,
he like
right,
brings the
right.
moon down.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so curious. I'd wonder what that's actually like, but I
Mm.
wouldn't want to be there. But
Mm-mm. Nope.
just to just to know.
Yeah.
um.
So
So
the yeah,
we
go
we see a lot of these examples though of people with a thing that doesn't quite add up,
ahead. Mhm.
and they allowed that to then come up with something that was totally transformative and totally new and
Mhm.
totally changed the scope of science
Yeah.
itself.
Gregor Mendel with genetics as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
So
Go ahead.
the reason I want to share some of this stuff is, in recognition of that. What I'm going to share is going to sound wild. If you haven't heard it before, some of you might be familiar with it, but it is work done by Donald Hoffman,
Mhm.
who is a cognitive scientist, and his perspective is slightly different than me, but his perspective is that the entire world that we experience through the human senses is an illusion. It is not real, right?
Mhm.
And there's a undergirding reality, an ultimate reality that does exist, but our senses are not able to interact with that reality um, in a way that will give us an accurate picture.
Okay.
So he gives a fun example of these beetles from these Australian beetles.
Mhm.
And he basically mentions that these Australian beetles, um, lived, and they had mating practices where they would see something that was kind of large and brown and dimpled, and they would kind of know, okay, that is a female that I can mate with, right? Because the
Okay.
males fly around, whereas the females can't fly around.
Oh, okay.
So, so that's kind of how they found out where am I going to land.
Okay.
That's how they figured it out.
I mean, the women,
Well,
they always get the bad end of the deal, don't they? I
they
mean,
do, they
I'm
do,
sure that
don't they?
the female beetles would like to fly around, but
Probably,
okay, go
unless
ahead.
you're a black widow, spider.
Oh yeah, yeah, praying mantis
Yeah,
too, I guess.
praying
All right, go
mantis.
ahead.
uh, but these beetles almost went extinct, and the reason they almost went extinct is because men, Homo sapiens, also have an interesting habit. They drink beer in brown glasses, and then they don't throw it away, but they'll throw it onto the ground. And these beetles would be attracted, the male beetles would be attracted to the beer bottles that would be brown, they would be dimpled, and they would be, even more importantly, larger than the other female beetles. And so the reason they almost went extinct is because they wanted to go and mate with the beer bottles and not with their actual species.
Okay then.
The example that of that is shared because it shows that their perception of reality was faulty. It gave
Mhm.
them hacks in order to understand their environment, but
Mhm.
it didn't give them a true representation of their environment.
Yes.
And so that is an interesting thing. We also see other examples of this in bats. Thomas Nagel has a very interesting paper called "What Is It Like to Be a Bat?" And the paper is a paper to deny physicalism, which is similar to materialism, but it's basically the idea that everything in the universe is made up of physical stuff.
Mhm.
So his argument is basically that what is consciousness? Consciousness is what is it like to be something. And so he explores by defining consciousness, and then he gets into how bats have a totally different conscious experience to us. What is
Yes.
it like to be a bat? It's
It's
very
bat
different.
consciousness. Yes.
And
Yeah.
what they end up, one of the things he highlights is echolocation, where they will map out their environment by sending out pulses of sound and
Mhm.
receiving that in their ears. And through receiving it in their ears, not through their eyes, receiving it through their ears, they can understand their environment
Right.
and the shapes and such.
Right.
Um, which is very fascinating
It is.
because like we tend to think of our understanding of our environment in terms of its shape in depth and even color um, as strictly visual. But if you can do that through echolocation, not color, you can't do that through echolocation. But if you can get an understanding of your spatial environment through echolocation,
Mhm.
then that kind of puts into question like what is going on. The other thing is, what can we like? We cannot understand echolocation. What bats are doing is something that is uncomprehendable. We can understand it scientifically, but we can't understand it in terms of its
Qualia.
uh, qualia.
Yeah.
Yeah, phenomena, qualia.
Yeah.
Exactly. What is it like to echolocate as a bat? We
Right.
don't know.
Right.
Um,
But I
so,
have heard of I follow certain blind TikTokers, YouTubers, and they do use sound to navigate their world.
oh,
Along with,
interesting.
other senses are more heightened because they don't have vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, or, they may have some like light or, just a very small pinhole or something. But, but y- yeah, I mean, we would notice it if we didn't, if we,
Yeah.
people who can see depend so much on vision, right? But if
Yeah.
you don't have that, then there's others. Um, it can tell kind of how far away people are from them, even if they're not talking, right? Just because there's changes in the sounds behind the people, right? So
Hmm.
they can tell if somebody's close to them or coming closer to them because there's, their experience of sound is more physical and three dimensional.
Hmm. That's so fascinating. I didn't even know
Yes,
that. That's
I
so
know.
cool. So
It
they can, what do they call it? Echolocation, or is it like kind of
It's not
similar?
echolocation, right? Because you're not sending
Okay.
out, right? But in a way, it is sound sight. I would call it,
Sound sight.
yeah, I just made that up, but I think that that's cool. I think it's kinda cool. But it's like, but yeah, I mean, it is and it makes sense. Molly Burke, Burke, she's
Mhm.
a blind person that talks about that, and she's walking through a park, and she's describing, I think there's a tree, like, walking, she can tell, that there's
Dude,
something stable there,
that's so
and she
cool.
can go to it and see. Yeah. Yeah.
I
So,
love it.
yeah, sighted individuals with normal hearing can learn to avoid obstacles using only sound. Oh, wait, did I
That's
miss part of it? Was there another part to it? No, because it's like a little quote there. Okay.
okay.
Anyway, yeah,
So that I
yeah.
mean,
I mean, and this is true. I mean, like trying to understand echolocation as a bat would be like trying to explain color, to those who might not. Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Um,
so yeah, there's a lot of those kind of examples.
mhm.
I think a good example is color itself.
Right.
Like we perceive color as like a property of objects, right? So like this notepad here that I got in my hand is white. Um,
Mm,
but in reality, the notepad doesn't have the property of whiteness,
right.
but instead it's reflecting that back, and I'm observing the light rays.
Right.
So that's something that our brain constructs in order to simplify this entire process of visualizing and taking in that information.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so what we can know is that um, our conscious like experience is not accurate in understanding ultimate reality. It
Mhm.
is giving us these sort of tips and tricks, right, in order to understand the information that we're gaining. And there's a lot of information we're gaining that we don't even know about, right? We're not being perceptive of.
We're not conscious of, right? We are processing a lot
Yes.
of information subconsciously and yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
AJ and
So,
I talked about this on her channel actually about, like, how our brain can fool us, right? I mean, most of the
oh,
time, if we don't it can't fool us completely. Okay, but there's two different things you're talking about. Is that like the world that we experience isn't necessarily exactly like the way that we think that it might be because we're experiencing the sound waves, the light waves, and all of that.
mhm.
And making that picture of our exterior world just like blind people can make that sound picture,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, but that there's many times that we are, you get a gut feeling, right? And it was often because we're processing information um that we don't necessarily know. Like,
Mhm.
you get a gut feeling, that your nervous system, right, might be reacting to something and you don't even realize it because I've talked about this, how our brain doesn't really understand time. And so you're having a conversation with somebody and you get triggered, right? And it's not
Mm.
necessarily
Yeah.
because that person is actually upsetting you. It's like something in the conversation might be similar to something that was harmful to you, or and your body is
Mm.
like, I gotta leave or I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
And but it's not necessarily always processing it frontal lobes or with words. So
Mhm.
yeah, being able to to know that that's how our brains can actually fool us as well is, yeah. So it's just a little bit similar to what you're talking about, but you're talking about like the actual um representation of what we think the world is like uh, is not exactly it's not exactly what it actually is, and can we ever
Yeah.
really know that? But and of course we experience it differently than the bats, right, or other animals
Yes.
have their different experiences because of their different brains, right, different sensory experiences and things. So all right, I think I'm with you. So
Hmm. Yeah. One last one, like a thought I like to propose, like if ants developed like the scientific method, what would their conclusions look like? I
mm,
think they would be probably vastly different than the conclusions we have
yeah,
because their sensory input is vastly different um,
right,
to ours.
right,
So um, I think there would be like overlap, but I don't think that it would be the same. Um,
mm.
and so for Donald Hoffman, this leads him to
Yeah.
simulation theory. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, our brains are hallucinating up an approximation of reality. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
that like, okay, Amber, you can say it in one sentence, and we took 10 minutes to go over it, but thank you. That's great because 'cause you're so pretty much
I tend to over talk. I
no,
tend
no, no,
to
no, I mean,
to over
I'm trying to, like,
explain.
process it as well, but that's
Yeah,
very good. That's very succinct.
I
That's
like
awesome.
it. We
Okay,
need
go ahead.
people like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So that's kind of what he's getting at, and that's what I am, processing. I think might be true.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm,
at least his kind of version of it is very extreme, though. He doesn't think that science has led us to any percent of understanding of ultimate reality. That's his conclusion from it.
hmm,
And so he kind of pictures it as like a VR set. You put on a VR set and you experience a whole reality um, that's totally different than what it's like with the VR set off. And so for him, he thinks that science has led us closer and closer to understanding human reality and human experience,
yeah,
um, but has led us 0% anywhere near to understanding ultimate reality. I don't know if I go that far with that,
mm,
but I can see where he's coming from
yeah,
with that
yeah.
conclusion. So
How do you tie this into your experience of deconstruction?
yeah, so my experience of deconstruction, as I kind of alluded to earlier, was a lot of suppressing what didn't add up, what didn't make sense, and the things that weren't quite, yeah, matching.
Right.
And I think a culture that we're in, which is very, post Enlightenment, um, I think we've gained a lot of really great things from that. But one thing I think we're lacking is a value in the subjective experience, a value of the um, traditions and this, even the spiritual traditions, I would say,
Mhm.
we don't really value that at all. And I think a lot of these spiritual traditions have a lot of overlap, especially when it comes to their topics on consciousness and becoming one, and
Mhm.
the ego death. Like a lot of that is very
Right.
popular today, and it's been popular in Buddhism. It's been very popular in Hinduism. It's even popular in some expressions of Christianity.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think it's important to recognize that science and um, philosophy and ways that we understand truth are very important. But if we kind of throw out the personal experience in favor of just that, I think we are doing a disservice to ourselves. I think we can come up with more interesting discoveries
Mhm.
through understanding and valuing conscious experience.
Yeah.
So that's
I
kind
think
of the tie
I
there.
think one of the things that is valuable in what you're saying is, learning to trust yourself
Mm,
and that experience because, I well, I mean, my experience as a woman and as a Southern woman, right? Uh, and just my personal experience. I don't know if it has to do with that, but there's been in my life and in people that I know, um, you know, there's that pressure, especially when we were talking about middle school and high school, right? Don't be like that. Don't be like that. Don't be like that, right? And you and like and personally for me, I would try to relay this is how I'm feeling right now, or this is how I'm understanding
Mm.
this. So there's in the deconstruction part, there's the questioning of it, right? There's like seeing a pattern that doesn't mesh, doesn't fit. So like, what do I do with this puzzle piece that's out of, and well, okay, so most of the time, in order to fit in order to be a part of that community, which is very important as humans, right, is to we learn how to suppress that, right? You learn how to
Mhm.
just kind of like, you know, you can ask questions, but don't ask too many questions. And there's a lot of faith that you can't, right? Ask questions.
Mhm.
It's the devil that's got you, yeah, for asking stuff like that. But it's also there's another point with that. Oh, of of learning how to listen to the non logical language part of your brain.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to what you said about the prophecy stuff uh, in the beginning about. Okay, well, first of all, I just think it's kind of wild with the spiritual gifts that you're learning spiritual gifts because the way that I grew up was that you discovered what your spiritual gift was. You didn't actually
Mm.
learn spiritual gifts, right? So some people have the gift of prophecy, but that is like something that they actually discover, or the gift of prayer, because
Mhm.
they find out in their experience with their church community, oh, I asked you to pray for me, and now, and so if you get that feedback, like, well, that might be my spiritual gift then, right? Because I have lots of people that I tell them I pray for them, and then they come back to me and say, my prayers were answered. So, you know,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
I even have a friend that I told, I was like, I think you've got this gift because every time I tell you a problem that I'm having and to pray for me, it resolves really quickly. So that was something that was interesting. But specifically, the prophecy part that you were talking about, of 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 imagining an animal, and then you reflecting to the person that this animal, what this animal represented for them, right?
Mhm.
One of the first experiences in learning to be a shaman is a spirit animal retrieval for another person.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, so once someone learns to journey, and learns to go, and you would go to lower world for this because that's where the animals are. Um, so you travel to lower world. So once you learn how to do the journeying part, then with another person, you're like, okay, you ask permission, would you like me to retrieve a spirit animal for you? And they're like, yes. So then you do a journey, you go to the lower world, and just whatever animal shows up, you ask, are you who I'm looking for? And they might go, nah, and it's how you find your own. But anyway, and they're like, yes. So you bring back, it's like, would you like to come back with me? Yes. So you bring that spirit animal back. You hand it to the other person before you talk about it, and then you tell them what it is, and then that person makes the connections for themselves. Why is this
Wow.
spirit animal important to me? What is it about
Yeah.
the qualities of this animal that is like, what is it that I need to focus on, kind of thing. Now,
Mhm.
there's a lot of explanations for this kind of thing. It's like, you actually go into another world and come back, right? Or it's just non-verbal representation of learning something about yourself, and that your inner self kind of knows, or maybe is trying to tell you, but you don't even realize, right? You need to focus on, if you're a hawk, if it's a hawk or something, I really need to focus on surveying the landscape and really focusing on the one thing that's most important to me, and really,
Mhm.
going for that. So there's a lot of different things. So I think it's really fascinating that 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 was the way that you were taught
Yeah,
prophecy, because shamanism is like the oldest religious practice, right,
that's
on
so
the planet.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just kind of fascinating. So
There's every time I explore like religious experience, I always find that there's a lot of connection to other religions and other faiths, and
right.
that's wow, that's super cool. I didn't even know that, so
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah, when
that's
you
super
said that, I
cool.
was like, "Oh, I gotta put a pin in that and explain." Yeah, because I think it's really kind of fascinating that that is, that was, part of the experience, but the way that I interpret that kind of experience, and what I when I was studying ethics, I
Hmm.
think the area of ethics that was most fascinating to me was narrative ethics,
Oh,
and
okay.
that you cannot separate your actions in the world, your understanding of what it is to be a human in society, without that society, and without that, the back and forth, uh, interplay basically between, your community and what's okay in your community, and what you learn from your community as to what's
Hmm.
important. So yeah, but so that's just a little bit of a different angle on what you're talking about as far as subjective experience, and it was in opposition to like John Rawls, who did theory of justice and talked about, you
Hmm.
know which it in a way is kind of interesting, like to create laws or ethics, or around, if you don't know who you're going to be in society, then obviously you're going to pick the fairest thing possible, because you don't know, if
Hmm.
you're the one that's actually going to have money or not have money, or privileged or not privileged. But I think that kind of gets twisted a little bit. But when I mean, I've read that book many times, and I'm just like, okay, it's an interesting idea on how to like be empathetic in a way, but it's weird, like to be
Hmm.
completely disconnected from anything in society
Yeah,
and try to make decisions about what is good and what is not. That just is like, that just doesn't, that never really fit with me,
it's
right?
that's interesting. So I've been reading well I've been studying the Gospel of Thomas for I don't know, like 5 months or so, 6 months.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a short text, but there's so much depth to it.
yeah.
And a lot of emphasis in it is this idea of oneness, right? And becoming
Mhm.
one with Christ. And there's a moment when Jesus basically says that it's similar to the synoptics, but he says that instead of becoming like a child and having like childlike faith, that they should become like a baby, and specifically someone who is just under 8 days old. And on the eighth day, that's when they would have um,
They're a human then, basically.
yeah,
Yeah, in the
they
culture.
would
Yeah,
have I'm blanking on the term right now.
yeah. I can't think of it either, but yeah.
But yeah, they would have cut the
When you have your
penis.
bris. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, they it would have been prior to that, which is when the identity of a male would have been granted, or identity of a female would have been granted to the baby.
Mm.
And so a lot of what becoming one looks like, this is one interpretation, in the Gospel of Thomas, is taking on the identity of not being male, not being female, kind of taking out and getting rid of all of the identities that this world gives you,
Mm.
and becoming one with one another.
Yeah,
So
okay.
yeah,
Fascinating.
yeah.
Yeah, I have to read that. I have a copy, but I haven't. I've read parts of it, but I never actually studied the
Oh,
whole thing. So,
it's
you
so
you
good.
don't happen to have Ron Hawk's version of that, do you? Ronald Hawk.
No, I have
His.
the Naga. I have the whole like Nagamati like
Oh, okay,
scripture,
okay, okay.
but um,
Oh, no, no, no. He's got the Infancy Gospel of Thomas. That's the translation that he did.
oh,
So
okay,
that's the other.
gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Cool. Yeah. So. Yeah. I think what I was trying to kind of like wrap up my understanding of like the connections with this. And I definitely, I'm going to put a link, everybody, to the TED talk that Jackson sent me about this idea. I think it's kind of interesting as far as the importance of subjectivity. Um,
Mhm.
but uh, but now I forgot what I was going to say. It's all right. I'm going to read the chat and maybe I'll think of it again.
I
uh,
saw I saw a question
oh,
that I thought was really interesting
with this one,
from Rangers. Yeah.
how
Okay,
does
so he says, "How does basically what I was just talking about becoming like a child, like a baby? How does that jive with Thomas 1:14, where Jesus says that He'll make all females into males?" So that verse is specifically talking about Mary Magdalene, and it's a very striking verse because basically Jesus is inviting Mary Magdalene into the inner circle,
Mhm.
and in that sort of invitation process, Peter speaks up and is like, women are worthless. I don't exactly remember the words there, but basically says that
Yeah,
that Mary should not be part of one of us. And Jesus's response is, I will make Mary a man so that she may be part of us, in that verse. And there's a lot of interesting interpretations. The way that I interpret that one is Mary is a female, and in order for her to become to sort of extract the femaleness and become out of that identity, is to become more like a male, right?
right.
And so that I think is what Jesus might be referring to there,
I
which is this
I have a
process of,
take on that as well. But
okay,
go ahead.
yeah,
But I don't want to interrupt you. Like,
yeah, but that's basically my thought process there.
yeah.
um I just had a conversation also with David Litwa, who he
Mm,
interprets that as basically being a way of identifying spirituality. He uses it as an analogy to identify it as a spiritual thing.
yeah.
But when I was reading it, that's kind of how I interpreted it, and I thought it was pretty interesting to see, like,
Yeah. I think
moving in a direction
the
toward
framework of
neutrality.
The Greco-Roman world at the time
Hmm.
was very, Platonist and Stoic and peripatetic, Epicurean. So, and so, there was a lot of these schools kind of like arguing with each other,
Hmm.
but a major idea is that the the dualism idea, but also this hierarchical. So, like the household codes of Paul, like there's God, there's Jesus, there's man,
Hmm.
there's woman, right? That kind of thing. That is a reflection of this Greco-Roman world idea, that the more you have speech, the more you are closer to the gods. So, in this hierarchy, so the logos was this connection that humans have with the gods,
Mm. Hmm.
and so the men were the ones that were educated, unless you were a hetira or a nun. Anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, but just rhetoric was a huge thing. Like the people who had command of the language were considered to be, more closer to the gods.
Mm.
But that hierarchy is there, that there is the male and the female and the children and then the servants and then, right,
Yeah.
in the social structure. So, yeah, yeah. Well, that is very true. It is very, yeah, yeah, because they had a lot of power. Yeah. Yeah. So that, oh, wait. Yeah, exactly. That is part of it as well. Yeah.
Piece of
It's
grief.
when
Oh,
we were
okay.
incomplete, yeah, imperfect men.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, which is just fascinating because we can actually make the humans, but anyway. Like, what are you talking about incomplete? We're not just complete. We just like we complete other people too. Like we make them.
We're not
So
fully
anyway,
actualized.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, great.
There
So go
there
ahead.
are other ways that I get to understanding subjectivity and basically get to non-realism in philosophy. Um, so I don't know if we want to go into those, but
I'm getting, it's getting a little late for me
yeah, yeah, yeah,
here.
yeah.
So, I
So
mean, this basically just means that we have more talking to do. We have a lot
okay,
more to cover. So,
yeah,
but I do think, yeah, and I'm going to think about this a little bit, watch that TED talk and
hmm
dive into this a little bit myself. So maybe I might be able to connect some of the, not just the theology and the science, but also the ethics part too as well. So it's kind of cool. So,
yeah.
but I want to make sure that you are that you can finish everything that you wanted to talk about.
Okay. I mean, I I gave the kind of evolutionary argument that the evolution selects for fitness,
Hmm.
and not necessarily like seeing reality as it actually is. So that's like my first main argument in favor of like this sort of simulation theory. Um, but then there's also the two philosophical arguments I think of. So there's an argument from mereology, which is in favor of mereological nihilism, which is basically the idea that
Wah, 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 wah. I'm sorry. I don't. Yeah.
so yeah, mereological nihilism, the idea that the parts that make up things
Hmm.
proves that the things do not exist, but are kind of semantic in their existence. And then there, I know,
I'm still
I
not sure. I'm trying to wrap my head around that.
I'm only just kind of introducing it, so it kind of sounds crazy
Okay.
at
Okay.
first.
Okay.
And then nominalism is the other kind of perspective, and I take that from I look at Aristotelian kind of physics, where he views things as substance and accidents,
Right.
and the distinction between them, and then look at the primary and secondary substance of things. The primary being what an individual thing is. So, like this mouse here is an individual thing,
Mhm.
but then as soon as I give it the name a mouse, right, it's now become part of a category of mouse.
Yeah.
And so there's a distinction between them, and there's potential error in my thought between viewing a mouse in only its accidents, but not its substance, and then naming its substance a mouse by categorizing it in that way. Because I'm only viewing the accidents. I'm only viewing, its touch, the
Yeah.
clicky sound of it.
Yeah. The
It's
color. How? Yeah.
yeah. But the actual substance in Aristotelian thought is not something I interact with. And so if I don't actually interact with the substance, and yet my naming of it gives it its secondary substance, then there's potentially error for the categories that we have as humans for things, and we might be categorizing things incorrectly. So,
Well, that makes sense. I think that would be, I think that would be cool to talk about just that particular subject.
mm,
And maybe even with AJ, because she's like really good with the brain, right? And so we can talk about you know, our perception of the world versus the actual world. I mean, that discussion makes a lot of sense to me too. So I think I would like to talk about that more. So we'll have to make a plan to get into that as well, and how that's actually, that idea, right, has been used in theology throughout the
oh
millennia
my
as
goodness,
well.
yeah.
Yeah,
We were
right.
talking about the Eucharist the other day,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
yeah, accidents and substance. It
Right.
changes in substance, but it's accidents that remain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's wild.
Right. Right. I'm just like, but really though.
Yeah.
I think maybe your perception of that isn't correct, but yeah, yeah. But it is kind of fascinating, and I think allowing it allows us to change our mind, though, doesn't it? To be, as
Mhm.
far as like what you're talking about, as far as focusing on the subjective experience. And connecting it to what I was saying about, learning to trust yourself and learning
Yeah.
to get information that's not just, you know, either the social information of you have to be like this and don't be like that, but also just verbal information or of the senses that we think that we are like just like I said, our nervous system can be like I've been in situations where I'm like really upset and the only way I can describe it is like my skin is on fire. Why does it feel like my
Mm,
skin is on fire, right?
yeah.
And learning about trusting, there's a reason. It could be a real perception of something that's happening around me, or it could be, a misperception of or misinterpretation of
A
what's happening around me.
misinterpretation.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Clever.
There you go. So, yeah, I think that would be I think those, kinds of things are really cool to talk about. So, yeah, maybe even with the substance kinda thing, I will show you that clip of Mike from, Inspiring Philosophy, who's trying to
Oh, okay.
explain the Eucharist and trying very hard to make it, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
I still, I don't know, I still enjoy their content, but there are times when I am just face palm, kind of thing. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Alrighty. Okay, well, it's bedtime. So
Yes.
thank you so much for joining me. Have you got anything coming up this week?
Yeah, so I live stream every single Thursday night at 7:30. So if you want to join that, I will be continuing my series, watching every single Alex O'Connor video until I can
All
get on his
right.
show.
All right.
So, and then the next podcast I have coming out is a follow up on the Shroud of Turin. My first one was with a Russ Brialt, who is a proponent of the Shroud of Turin. So I allowed him to kind of speak, push him a little bit on some things, but I thought it was pretty interesting. And then I have a follow up video with Hugh Ferry, who is someone who, uh, you know, was once a proponent of the Shroud of Turin, but now disagrees with it.
Okay.
So it's a very
Okay,
good one.
cool. Yeah, you'll get some more information with all of that. So cool,
Yep.
cool. Yeah. Yeah. I'm the number two fan, I think, maybe. Oh my goodness, everybody, thank you so much for joining us and being here and listening to our conversation. We really, really appreciate you being here. It's great to see you. And I hope everybody has a good evening and we'll catch you next time. I'll be here again next week, Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern. Y'all take care.